First of all, I want to say thank you to all that have served in the armed services. Today is Memorial Day, and I want you to know straight from me that as an American man, do not take that lightly. That is a service that I could never do. And I believe it's a debt that all Americans should repay in the best way possible. So I'm not looking at today like a 3-day weekend, but I just want to say thank you. If you've served or if you've lost a loved one, then I want to know that we've certainly been thinking about you today. So, all right, guys, back right into the book Beardology. We're going into chapter 2. I definitely got my mic fixed this time, so let's dive in. Chapter 2, the harsh reality of choice. Without the pain and peaks, there can be no fruit. The fruit is validation of the journey, but not of the journey itself. The journey is the lesson is the path leads to the fruit. Paul M. Berens. No matter how much you plan, no matter how much you prepare, life will always find a way to put your balls into a vice grip when you least expect it, and fuck with you like never before. The day I learned how unpredictable life was, I was sitting in the recliner at the fire station. Now I know what you may be thinking, but that's not all that a fireman does. It's just a perk of the job. The year was 2007, and there I was, a young 22-year-old firefighter living my dream. After years of schooling that I started at the age of 16 and countless hours and drills of preparation, I was doing it, really doing it. I was getting paid to be ready at a moment's notice, to spring into action to go help someone in distress. I'm not entirely sure where or why my dream to become a firefighter came from. If you were to ask my mother, she would tell you it was because of a traumatic experience I had when I was 2. The experience goes a little like this. When I was 2 years old, we were living with my grandmother at the time. Much like I do every morning today, my grandmother got up every morning and made herself a pot of good old Folgers coffee. Something in my underdeveloped 2-year-old brain thought it would be a good idea to start the morning off by climbing my grandmother's kitchen counter. Well, I fell from the countertop, and as I was falling, I reached for something to stop the fall, and I just had to grab the scorching hot, freshly brewed coffee pot. The hot coffee ended up all over my body. My mother called 911 and rushed me to the bathtub because my body was so severely burned that my stomach was oozing with pus. This bathtub scenario continued when the firefighter was standing in the doorway of the bathroom while my mom frantically tried to help her son. This experience landed me in the children's burn unit for a couple of days with second-degree burns all over my body. To this day, the only memory I have is of that firefighter standing in the doorway while I was in the bathtub. At 38 years old, I have no physical scarring, and I love me a good cup of coffee in the morning. So there I was, sitting in the recliner in the day room of the fire station. I can still smell the room because it smelled like fresh diesel exhaust from the fire engines. This fire department wasn't keen on safety regulations. The walls in the station were always covered by the black soot from the exhaust because there was no ventilation capturing hoses for the fire truck exhaust. And the walls were also paper thin. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, a sharp, piercing pain emerged from my right eye. My forehead felt like it was on fire from the pain. I could barely keep my eyes open. I thought I was going to pass out from the pain, that it was so intense. I ended up grabbing some aspirin from the medical kit in an attempt to alleviate my pain, but that didn't do shit. After sitting in excruciating pain for about an hour, my eyes slowly started to become sensitive to the light. This pain was so severe I had never felt it before. I was thinking that it was just a headache or maybe a migraine, but a headache like this I had never experienced. As I sat in the recliner in pain, I couldn't sit still. Yet every movement I made, my head would throb. I would moan in agony, and my heart seemed like it was beating so loud that I swear my crewmates could hear it. I was sitting there in disbelief, wondering what the fuck was going on. I then realized I needed to go home. I proceeded to let my lieutenant know and drove home somehow in pain, barely keeping my eyes open. Fortunately, I lived fairly close and took it slow and easy. When I got home, I went straight to the medicine cabinet where I choked down a few more pain relievers and laid in bed until the pain subsided enough for me to fall asleep. Over the next few weeks, this would happen a few more times. This led me to go into the doctor's office and seek out an ear, nose, and throat specialist. After a series of tests and exams, I was scheduled to have my first sinus surgery. For the first time in my life, I had to go under the knife. The surgeon explained the process and what to expect. There I was under the bright lights, being wheeled into the frigid, cold air operation room. I was exposed physically, being naked in a hospital gown, and mentally. Deep down, I was nervous. I looked to my left and saw the straps that they would use to strap me down while I was under anesthesia. After all, they were going inside my skull next to my brain. Fuck. Not so invincible now, Paul. Laying in my hospital gown on the hospital bed, I counted back from 10 with the sedation of the anesthesia about to knock me the fuck out. I was scared. Would I wake up? 5, 4, 3, out. This surgery was brutal. The surgeon let me know how bad my whole sinus cavities actually were. They were so bad that he performed a total of 3 surgeries in one. The sinus cavities got the good old roto-rooter. He removed my turbinates, which were structures in my sinuses, and he supposedly had fixed my deviated septum. The surgery was a success, only according to the medical establishment model. I took off a week of work, spent time with my girlfriend Jacqueline, and after a week I was ready to get back to work and get back to the life of living my dreams. After all, I was a fireman, and I just wanted to get back to the firehouse. That is where I belonged. That was my home. Why is it when we're young we have a sense of invincibility? You look at your parents or your grandparents and you think that they are so far away, when in reality you will arrive at that age quicker than you expect or want to. When you mix the bravado of becoming a fireman with it, it literally can be a deadly combination. As a young fireman, you're not thinking about the bad things that could happen, or at least I wasn't during this point in my career. As a firefighter, you're trained and you hear of firefighters across the country getting injured or even dying all the time. It was a very dangerous job across the board. There's a sense of arrogance you have to have, or the thought of that this will never happen to me. That is very common amongst firefighters. When you put on the uniform with the shining firefighter badge, or you suit up in your bunker gear for an emergency run, you feel like you're invincible. You feel like Batman. As I was driving back on my first day, I got called over the radio. 5 out of 25, which was my identifier. This is command. I'm thinking, what the hell? I'm not even on the clock yet. Command, this is 5 out of 25. Go ahead. Yes, sir. We need you to respond to a structure fire underway at this address. Copy, command. 5 out of 25 en route to location emergent. There it is again, living my dream. At this point in my career, I had been a volunteer firefighter for over 3 years. During that time, I had taken an interest in fire investigations. The commander of this fire was calling me to investigate this structure fire. This was my first day back after my surgery. My sinuses were clear and open, something I had not noticed how badly clogged they were until after the surgery. The first day back doing my dream job ended up being a pure day and a half of hell. This investigation was not easy. I spent the next 14 hours of my first day back digging out a fire scene of a single family home. Better yet, I did it with no mask or respirator on since the air was clean. You could smell the burnt plastic and polyurethane foam that it just so happens when you burn polyurethane foam, it produces hydrogen cyanide gas. This is the bravado of a fireman. The face is covered with black soot from running a structure fire, looking and feeling cool and acting like a real American hero. The facts are, though, this is extremely dangerous and idiotic. Our choices have consequences. When I got home, I hopped in the shower and the water turned black immediately. Standing in the shower with the water running over my head, water black at my feet, there it is again. The pain behind my right eye. What the fuck? I just had surgery. This is not supposed to happen again. I thought to myself, maybe I was still healing. That's it. It had nothing to do with breathing toxic or cancerous fumes or inhaling debris for 14 hours today. The next day I would call in sick. This was the recognition of what would be my life's battle for the next several years. My own health complications. The beginning was actually the day I became a volunteer firefighter and started this process in 2003. Not to mention my continuous exposure to harmful and cancerous fumes and products over the next 10 years. As my career advanced and I got older and a little wiser, my health would begin to deteriorate. I began to realize that something within my body was really wrong. My first sinus surgery was in 2007. My second would be just 3 years later in 2010. It was obvious to mention at this point that my habits did not change at work a whole lot during the time. My health would begin to show signs of serious concerns, and that is when the fear started to creep up in me. Shortly after my second sinus surgery in 2010, I'd begun to lose my sense of smell. This is when the depression began. I should also mention that at this point, I had started to gain weight due to my eating habits and the stress of my job. In 2011, I completely transitioned off the fire truck and became a full-time fire prevention officer and investigator. I made it up in my head that this might solve my current health situation of not being able to smell sometimes. On June 26, 2011, in Evergreen, Colorado, I married my best friend, my biggest supporter, and my longtime girlfriend, Jacqueline Brumley. Jacqueline, for the past 4 years, had been living apart from me in Atlanta, Georgia. She was studying to become a doctor. This was a great day. This day not only became the day we solidified our life together under God, but it also meant we had overcome some serious relationship challenges a few years prior. Being apart from each other and only seeing each other one time a month had challenges on a couple that is in love. Truth be told, when she first left to go to her doctorate school, we had the most trying 3 months in our relationship. We were barely communicating, and I felt alone and abandoned by her. She was around new people and living a new life, and I was not there with her. We almost didn't make it through this time as a couple. This only added to the stress of my failing health and work stress. By the time we got married, she was almost finished becoming a doctor of chiropractic. I had virtually lost all hope in myself and began to question that something was seriously wrong with my body. The fear of the word cancer or tumor was frequently on my mind. Despite everything we had tried, nothing had begun to work long term. At the end of 2011, Dr. Jacqueline Berens moved home. For as long as I've known this woman, she's always had a holistic mentality about her. During this time of my complete lack of health and her brilliant brain, we literally tried everything in the book to restore my sense of smell and taste. Oils, tinctures, pellets, etc. I had virtually lost all hope in myself and began to question that something was seriously wrong with my body. The fear of the word cancer or tumor was frequently on my mind. Despite everything we had tried, nothing had worked long term. At the end of 2011, Dr. Jacqueline Berens moved back home into our townhome with our 2 little dogs, Egan and Bella, and we began our life together as husband and wife. Over the next 3 years, my health continued to decline. I was continually digging a deeper hole of depression. We continued to research and try new things, and still nothing ever worked. These 2 senses of smelling and tasting cannot be replaced like you can with glasses or contacts for your eyes or hearing aids for your ears. It took the joy out of my life. We'd go out to dinner or to breweries together or with friends, and the whole time I would say to myself that I could not smell this food or taste this drink. Not to mention that I was still having debilitating sinus headaches a few times a month that would force me to pop some high-potency drugs and go to sleep. This was especially difficult because it put a strain on our relationship as a new married couple. I was always out of sick time at work, and we had to frequently cancel plans because I was feeling this way all the time. By the time 2014 rolled around, I lost all hope that I'd ever smell or taste again. My sense of smell would randomly come back at times for a few hours or just a few minutes, leaving me in complete astonishment of why my body would only allow me to smell for a few minutes at a time. I was still experiencing major sinus pressure, constant drainage, or being clogged all the time. I'd gone into the ENT to have a CT scan done, and my sinuses were so compacted with mucus they were worried that it may burst the barrier to my brain and skull and essentially kill me, virtually leaving me no recourse but to go under the knife for the 3rd time in less than 9 years. During this time, the fear continued to rise within me. A year prior, in 2013, one of my closest friends, Craig Milanen, was diagnosed with a rare form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This was especially troubling me. He and his wife are incredible friends of ours and incredible people. Craig was a groomsman at our wedding. But more importantly, Craig and I had been volunteers and paid firemen and came up together in our careers at the same department. We had run several calls together and developed the bond of brotherhood as friends and brothers. I was constantly worried that my fate was already sealed with the health issues I had been having the past few years. I felt at times as though my time was slowly running out. I often believed that I would die young and my new wife would have to remarry someone else that wouldn't be a burden on her and her life. I was constantly thinking of what happens when we have kids. It was a very dark time in my life. I no longer felt invincible as I once did. Quite the opposite was true. I felt fragile. I felt like my life was no longer my control. I believed that my time was running short. By this time, I was more intuitively aware that the choices I had made all those years back, fighting fires, not wearing masks or respirators, had been the nail in my coffin. Key takeaways: unpredictability of life. Reflect on where in your lifetime you've experienced unpredictability in your life and what was the impact. Struggle with identity. Think back of a time where you felt invincible and why. Also, consider where you felt exposed and vulnerable and why. What were the implications of each of those feelings? Number 3, impact on relationships. How did this reflection of the above feelings impact your relationship? How could you have handled it better? You have the power to create a new frame surrounding this moving forward. Number 4, loss of control. Are there areas in your life right now where you feel you're not in control of your life? Who do you need to become to take back control? Be honest and get a crystal clear on that path. All right. So that is the beginning of my health journey. Now, my sinus surgery was in 2014. Since then, I've had no sinus surgeries. So 11 years, no sinus surgeries, which is completely unheard of, guys. Like once you have this surgery, it's like every 4 years. Good news, my health is great. My smell, my taste has been back for 8 or 9 years, has not been a problem. Why? Right? It's because I live a different lifestyle now. I'm out of the fire service. I'm very conscious about how I eat. We turn health and wellness center, which we get into a little bit, but begin my struggles as a man. Like I chose this career to go into the fire department and started living that life. And, having the signs, 14 years to ultimately resign and leave the fire department for good and leave that behind me. So, but just time, like I was struggling, like this was the beginning of my struggles. And too often, like it's in hindsight that we, stuff. And being a younger fireman, yeah, I felt invincible. And then as I got older and I started getting more wiser, my health started failing. And we hear it all the time. It's like healthy, you have 99 problems, but when you're sick, you have one, your health. And, I get into this in chapter 4. I lost my friend Craig. He ultimately of cancer after battle he had for several years. But that was the genesis of me starting to go downhill. And it took me a long time. I sat in there at 22. I'm sitting in the fire department. It took almost another 10 years for me to figure out like this is no longer for me. And this is a big proponent of why I wrote this book, is because what took me so much time to figure out that I needed to change. And I, as a man, I knew there were things, but I didn't want to explore it. So how many times as a man have you had something come up in your life, you feel it here and you're like, I don't want to go there. God, the timing's not right. Or you feel called to do something and you don't want to do it because it'll be fucking hard. So guys, take these key takeaways, take my stories of my rapidly declining health, and my mentality and my straining my marriage to my wife. Take these stories, take the key takeaways and reflect on your life. And as always, like, comments. If you take these key takeaways, put them in the comments below what came up for you. Until then, dominate daily.